Films are often regarded as the art of the images, and the viewing process is highly emphasized. However, the film Blind Massage seems to deliberately challenge this very notion. It focuses on a unique group in Chinese society, blind massage therapists. The film shows us a world of faces without eyes, full fathom 5 into the fundamentals of cinema and the very fabric of perception, a world where light and darkness lose their usual meaning, but basic human emotions remain the same. This video will analyze the film from the perspective of spectatorship theory. The video argues that blind massage construct an embodied mode of spectatorship by reorganizing visual and tactile sensory. As Jennifer Barker argues, cinema addresses the spectator not only through vision, but through the whole body, producing meaning via tactile and affective engagement rather than detached observation. Thus, in the film, we can clearly observe that visual dominance has been eliminated often. The blurred images in the film invite tactile engagement rather than optical recognition, and sound overtakes sight as the dominant sense. This sensory reorganization constructs an embodied spectatorship. In short, through this video, we aim to explain how viewers of the film Blind Massage can, through the act of watching, come to understand the sensation of being unable to see. In the opening sequence of Blind Massage, the film does not offer the spectator a clear or stable viewing position. Instead, from the very beginning, the image remains in a state of persistent defocus. Figures dissolve into patches of light. Foreground and background collapse into each other. Light sources do not illuminate space, but instead produce harsh glare. Bodies are repeatedly fragmented and obscured, entering the frame only as partial forms, while spatial depth becomes nearly impossible to determine. In these images, whether blurred silhouettes or figures swallowed by light, the spectator cannot quickly orient themselves visually. We cannot determine the distance between characters, nor can we grasp their relative positions in space. The image lacks clear depth cues, movement is difficult to track, and visual information appears unstable, continuously slipping, and on the verge of collapse. Crucially, this blurring is not a brief subjective point of view. The film does not later correct this mode of seeing. Instead, it forces the spectator to remain within this perceptual uncertainty for an extended duration. It is precisely here that Blind Massage directly intervenes in and dismantles what Jean-Louis Baudry describes as the classical cinematic apparatus. For Baudry, the traditional configuration of camera, projection, and screen positions the spectator as a centered, stable, and all-seeing subject. Through continuous, transparent, and intelligible images, spectators are led to believe that space is fully graspable, that images exist for them, and that they themselves are the origin of meaning. In the opening of Blind Massage, however, this visual sovereignty is completely withdrawn. The image no longer offers a position that the spectator can comfortably occupy. Instead, vision itself becomes the source of difficulty. The image cannot be easily read. Space no longer appears as a controllable whole, and looking no longer guarantees understanding. In other words, the cinematic apparatus no longer sustains the illusion of the all-knowing spectator. The viewer can no longer assume themselves to be the center or origin of the image, but is instead forced to confront a different realization, that seeing does not grant control over the world. Here, the critique of the cinematic apparatus is not articulated through theoretical exposition, but enacted at the level of perception itself. Visual comprehension is deprived, space becomes ungraspable, and the visual mastery on which classical cinema depends collapses at this moment. After the disruption of visual perception, the audience experiences a sensory reorganization by touching a film with one's eyes, which is termed haptic visuality. In the intimate scenes, the set of dark red light blurs the spatial depth. In this unstable viewing process, the audience is forced to watch two faces pressed closely together rather than in an active way of viewing. Meanwhile, the sexual tension is indirectly indicated in this scene in the extreme proximity of skin. The loss of the distance between the audience and the screen pulls them into a phase of intimacy, which blurs the self-awareness of the viewers. The audience is neither a character in the film nor a detached observer outside of this scene. A new embodied spectator state emerges from this in-between viewing process. Also, as the audience can barely see the naked human bodies, the only way they can locate their body in the film is through the sound. The transition of the dominant sensory from visual to audio lets the audience feel the intensity of the scene before they perceive. In this case, The strong breath and clinking earrings indicate the romantic atmosphere before showing it physically and clearly. All the things make the audience feel the scene in such a real, tangible way by engaging all the senses of their body in the film. This echoes what Sobchak affirms: the lived body is always already engaged in a commutation and transubstantiation of the cooperative, meaning-making capacity of its senses. In conclusion, Blind Massage demonstrates that cinema need not be visually dominant to foster profound understanding. The film activates embodied perception, especially tactility, enabling sighted audiences to experience rather than merely observe the world of the blind. As able-bodied spectators, through this sensory reorganization, we realize that vision and comprehension are not synonymous. Meaning arises from the body's full sensory capacities, not solely from sight.